Okay, this is our first installment. This is how we put it together. You have two pieces of the batting that goes in the center. You have a front piece. Well, actually this is the back piece, but that's the one that you can see that have the lines drawn on it. And then you put that so that the lines and the outside of the fabric is up so that you can see it. Then you flip it over and you put this is the wrong side of the fabric where it's lighter, and this is the right side of the fabric where it's darker. You put that so that you can see the dark side, right side up. Okay, now you want to make sure these two for some reason didn't come out exactly the same size, so you just want to make sure that you have good coverage here so that when you cut this line out you have all of the green fabric or well, mine's green, yours is different colors. And you use these nice little clippy things and clip it together to kind of just hold it. It didn't have to have a lot of them because it stays pretty well together. But it just helps to make sure that they stay together. Like that. See, it's catching both sides. May have a little bit of trouble if this one or the other isn't the same size. You may have trouble getting them both, but it caught it on the back. That way you don't get your fabric folded on the back. Like if you're not careful, it could end up like that, and if you sewed it right here, you'd have this. You'd miss this corner. So you want to make sure that that stays flat. These little clips are something new that I've just discovered in the last year or so I'm not real good at using them yet, but they're pretty handy. Would have used pins for it before I had these clips. You just pin it in the corners or something like that to hold the fabric still while you sewed it. But these work pretty well for that. Okay, now we're ready to move the sewing machine in. Right here. Let's see, can you see it? Yeah, turn the light on. Okay, when you get ready to sew, one of the things that you need to do when you start sewing right at the very first is you need to hold these threads. The bobbin thread is right here, and then the thread that goes through the needle is right here, and you need to hold those. If you don't, they will cause what they call a bird nest on the back. It's just a real jumble of threads on the back, and it just looks ugly. It's not a very secure way of doing it. And I've discovered that if I use one of these little clips and clip them together, because I have trouble finding them back there both to hold on to them. Most people who sew just reach back and grab them, and I can't seem to find them. So I use my little clip like that, and then slide it. Make sure your top thread right here from the needle is under your foot. This is the foot. Okay, and you just slide them back there in the back, and then you go to the center line on your fabric. And the light from my sewing machine kind of makes it hard to see, but you've got these lines drawn on the fabric, and you find the middle one, and you start on the middle one, and you put your needle right over that line outside of this line. This line will be your cut line. You'll cut your potholder out on that line, so you don't have to worry about stitching on it, and you can stitch past it. So you put your needle right over that. See, it's right over it. Now, put my foot down so you can see. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but it's right on that line. Okay, and the foot's down and my threads are controlled, and then you just then you hit the camera, and now you're gonna want to pull this way when you're stitching, but don't pull so much that the fabric can't move through. The sewing machine will move the fabric through, see, just like that. You don't want to hinder that, but you want to guide it and kind of hold it tight if you can. If you can't hold it tight and let it sew, then just let it go and guide it. This is to practice sewing a straight line, okay? And you watch it and you sew a straight line right over those, and if you don't sew it perfectly straight, it's alright, because the blue lines wash out. They won't stay in there after it's washed, but they're a guide for us right now. You don't have to be in a big hurry. Just take your time and go slow. You go across this line, and go through past your cutting line and stop and put your needle down. Mine has an automatic thing so that it'll put the needle down in the fabric. But if it doesn't, then you move the wheel that moves the needle up and down. You can do it manually. I'll show you that in a minute in case you need it. Then you just turn your fabric and stitch over to the next line. And you don't have to worry about anything outside of the potholder line, because that'll all get cut off. Get somewhere near your next line over and put your foot down and stitch that line. Yeah. Now I'm pulling a little bit, but I'm not pulling too awful much. It seems to be doing okay. What I'm trying to do is keep it from making puckers when I do the lines the other direction. And you can take your little clip off because it'll be in the way a little bit. And your threads are fine then. Turn, leave your needle down, turn, go to the next line. And if by chance the clips are in your way and they bother you, then you can pin your fabric with regular pins. You just push it all the way through. You can't see what I'm doing. See, all the way through. Then angle it so that you have it. See, there's the tip of the needle. And then angle it over and push it back through so that it's like that. And then you've got it secured and you don't have to use the clips. Just be careful and don't hit that needle or that pin with your needle, because it'll break your needle. Okay, now we're ready to turn this one. And just keep stitching. Just sew as fast as you can control it. If you have to go slower, that's fine, because it'll make a squiggly line quicker than you know it. I'm gonna pull that out and just keep moving over to the next line. Oops, yeah, I went off the line a little bit. Okay, then when you get to the end of that last line in that row, you lift your needle, lift your foot, pull it out, trim your threads. You don't have to make them necessarily short. Just pull them out. Don't cut them while you've got tension. Don't be, if you're pulling tight like that and cut them, they bounce everywhere, and sometimes they'll bounce right out of your needle. Give plenty of space when you trim your thread. Pull it way out like that. Don't try to conserve thread. Just use all the thread you need. Make sure they're long, because if you don't, when the thread goes down, well, let's cut it too short and we'll see what it does. If you cut it too short, it unthreads. See? Then the thread completely disappeared. Because it needs a certain amount of thread in order to make the stitch. It's got to wrap the thread down around the bottom thread and pull it back up. And then you have to rethread it. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate threading needles. Partly because I'm having trouble seeing them. And if you wet that a little bit, it makes it go through the hole a little easier. Then you've got it through. Pull it back to the underneath your foot. And I'm going to put another clip on. Got the same clip. Okay, and just drop that in the back. Now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines sewn. Doesn't matter which side you start on, just go to the next one from the center. This one right here. And start. I guess I could leave that off and show what a bird nest looks like. Because my machine will make one every time. Watch it not do it. Okay, now just stitch. Yeah, it did it just then. I heard the machine. And all of the lines are, the fabric is fairly well held on now, so you can take the clips out if they get in your way. I find they kind of catch on the side of the machine and stuff a little bit. Yep, too far. Okay. All that did was back my needle up 1 stitch. And stitch, stitch, stitch. Oh, of course it didn't do the bird's nest. Well, we'll force it to in a minute. Being able to sew fast does not mean you're sewing good. So just take your time. Don't rush it. You're supposed to enjoy it, and if you rush, it causes problems and you don't enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. It's not. Okay, that was my last line for that direction. See, I pulled it tight and then I relaxed it so that I can cut my threads. You can leave those threads long because they'll get cut off. Okay, then you find your center again. Find your center thing line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's half of 7? It's actually 2.5, but 3.5. I'm not good at math, so sorry. It's 3.5, but if you've got an odd number, the half one will be an odd number. 1, 2, 3, be an even number. Boy, it's a good thing Grandma's not homeschooling you. Okay, you find that center one, and you just start stitching again. Same process. Now, when you sewed the first lines, it's making these lines go a little crooked, so you can either follow the line exactly or you can just kind of eyeball and make it as straight as you want. It does no harm whatsoever. Pulling it a little bit tight, it helps keep it flat when you come to the stitching lines. You may get a little bit of pucker or something like that over where you've already stitched. It's fine. Normally, this is quilting. This is like if you were making a great big quilt, what they do on the top of it after you've got all your pieces put together. And normally if you were doing that on a big quilt, it would be held real tight by a big board that it's pinned to, and that way you wouldn't get the tucks and puckers in these lines if you were holding it tight enough, or if you did it like an embroidery hoop or something like that to hold it tight. But these are learning experiences to see what a fabric does, how the sewing machine works, and to learn the skills of sewing straight and following lines. That's done a lot in a couple of different ways when you're sewing. Don't know whether you can hear it on the recording, but my sewing machine is making a little bit of a thump 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 noise as it goes through the fabric. That's telling me I probably need to put a new needle in. They get dull. Let's see, I got to the end of that. Now I'm going to trim that off and start the other half of it. Right there. And maybe one of these will have a bird nest on the back. I'm just keeping my needle right on the line and following the line as best I can. And the last line. Be very, very, very careful with these fingers around that needle. I did sew through my thumb one time, and that makes you jerk your finger out and break the needle and everything else, and it hurts really bad. So watch when you're holding your fabric. You keep your fingers way back away from that needle in the front of that and the side. You don't want to get those fingers in that needle when it's going, because it doesn't stop. Not a bird nest in the one. We'll find one. But anyway, if you get it, it makes a little knotted mess at the beginning of your. That's almost one, but it's not quite. It'll be at the beginning every time. And if you get that, it's because these weren't held back and they just kind of caught each other and made a little knot. Okay, the next process is move the sewing machine out of the way. And you want to get your fabric shears, your scissors that you cut fabric with. And just a bit of warning, if you've used your scissors for paper, they won't work real well on fabric. Paper, for some reason, dulls fabric, or dulls scissors really easily. So Pap knows better than to use my scissors on paper. And then you just take it and you cut out along that line that goes around the outside of the pot holder. Don't worry about cutting the threads. That's why you sewed through the edge. We'll secure that with the part that goes around the outside. And I'm not even in the picture. There we go. Here, let's move this out a little bit. There we go. Okay, now you can see what I'm doing. Just cut it right along that. Cut it as smoothly as you can. If you make a bobble, it won't harm anything, but you always work to make it as pretty as you can. There. And that's the basic pot holder that's quilted. Okay, just throw your extra fabric away. And then the next thing you want is your edging. Now I tried, on the last one I made, I tried pinning it all down before I sewed it down, and that didn't work real well. And I need to go iron a little bit of a hem on this beginning part, and you'll see why when I get through. But I'm gonna iron it so that it's flat like that, and then it'll fold like that, and you'll have a finished edge right there. Okay. Okay, I've got it ironed. You can do it a lot of ways. It's about 1/4 of an inch. something like that. That's about 3/8. It's a little more than 1/4 inch. It doesn't really matter, but if you want to get it straight, you can measure it and mark it and fold it over and iron it. Otherwise, just to get it straight, you know, and just fold your edges so that they match on both sides, and that way you've got it straight. Okay, and that'll be your, well, yeah, that'll be your finished edge. When we get around, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, a while ago on the other one, I tried to pin it all down so that and then stitch it down, and I wanted to cut this big piece off, but it seems to work better if you don't do that. Now you want to do your first seam, you leave it folded. It's folded like that. You leave it folded and you put that unsewn edge or the unfinished edge right along the edge of the pot holder. Okay, and you can clip it or pin it, whichever one works the best. Make sure you get all layers, back side and front side and this. Okay, don't start on a curve, start in the center. Matter of fact, I'm going to move that down just a little bit. Okay, okay, now then you just move those over there out of the way and move the scissors out of the way, and I just put that clip in my mouth so that you can't understand me, and we'll move this and turn my light back on. Okay, my needle automatically goes to that side, and right now I'm wanting it in the center so that it's easier for me to measure. If it's in the center, I'm looking for 1/4 inch. Okay, so if my needle is down and I butt my measure up against it, don't push it, but just touch it, and put your foot down, and it's still not 1/4 inch, is it? Okay, I've got it marked. Oh. Okay, let's try. Let's see what else we have here. Well, I'm trying for 1/4 inch on that. It's a little bit longer. You can't see the measures, but that's how you get your measurement. I'm actually sewing on 5/16 of an inch. That's where that's hitting, and I'm having my fabric follow right along that edge right there of the foot, and the needle is right in the center, and it's about 5/16. Is that what I said? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16 of an inch, which is 1/16 past 1/4 inch. That may be why I'm having a little bit of trouble getting my things lined up, but anywhere between 1/4 and 3/8, 1, 2, 3/8, yeah, would probably work fine. So we'll bring this back around over here. I left the big roll of the striped fabric over there. And let's move this over. You can't see that. Lift that and lift your needle back up. See, there's a wheel on the right hand side of your sewing machine, and that's what I'm moving my needle with. The big wheel. Put it under, and I'm lining, okay, I'm lining the edge of the fabric up with the side of the foot. Then I put my foot down and back up a couple of stitches, and then go forward slowly, you know, because you've got a curved corner, and I made it a curved corner because they're a little easier to sew than a mitered square of a cornered corner. Okay, you get about there, and then you need to start pulling the fabric around like that. You just pull it around. That's why this fabric is cut on what they call the bias, so it has stretch. And that'll make it easier to go around that corner. You just go real slow, and you kind of have to work with the puckering over here. You have to keep moving that out of the way, but it'll sew flat if you keep working on it. If you have to, lift your foot up and adjust your fabric. When I pinned it down all the way around and then did this, I had a lot of trouble getting my corner flat, so I decided it would just be easier to do this way and adjust the fabric as I went. You don't want to get in a hurry. On this longer edge, you can pull a little bit further back. And just hold it still and watch your fingers. Don't get your fingers in the way. Watch your fabric. Go slow so you can stop when you need to. See, I needed to adjust that. If I'd have been going fast, I'd have been past it, and then I'd have had to rip it out. Pull the stitches out, and it's not hard, but it's something that's not really fun to do. And you're working so close with the fabric and your fingers and the sewing machine that you don't want to get in any hurry so that you don't sew your fingers to it. You know, then you'd have to wear a potholder for the rest of your life on your hands, which might be in some circumstances not too bad, but it might make it hard to write. Let's see, it wants to pucker right there, so lift up my foot and just ease it. They call that easing it. Pull it around. Come on, baby. That's right. Just keep moving it over next to that edge so that I can follow the edge with my foot of my sewing machine. All these things take patience and practice. So if it doesn't work out easy for you right at first, don't get frustrated with it. Or if you do get frustrated, get up and walk away for a little bit. Because sometimes when you're trying to sew and you're frustrated, it just seems to get worse. So if you walk away for a little bit and kind of calm down, it'll make it easier. There I went off a little bit. Now this is it's a little tail from sewing the bias tape together, so you can clip it off so that you have a nice flat edge. Just be careful and don't cut where you don't want to cut. Keep a trash can next to you so that when you cut threads off and straighten all of that, and like that little piece of fabric, you can throw them away. That way they're not all over the house. Just keep it as close to that edge as you can. Okay, now we're close enough here that what we can do is pull this around, and you want to go past this edge. You want to go past it and cut off the excess binding. See how I've got these edges nice and straight to one another? Then you just put your scissors in there, put a little bit of pressure on, and you get a straight cut. When I did that a while ago and I tried pinning it all down and cut the fabric, I had too much tape and I had trouble getting the corners flat. Now there's another situation here that I'll show you in just a second. That will require a little bit of trimming. Okay, there we have that. Now, for some reason, if you do this exactly straight with this original one, it'll be longer. It has to do with the fold and the thickness of the fabric and stuff like that. So what you want to do is, starting about right there, you want to let this fall a little straighter, and I trim off the fabric so that I have a straight edge to follow. But you want to let it, I'll show you what I'm trying to achieve here. I want this inside of this, and I still want the straight edge so I can see where to sew. So you see how that works? I may have taken a little more off than I should have, but we'll see when we fold it around. And you just sew it down. You don't have to do anything with that edge because it's going to be hidden by this one that you folded and now what I did just then was, I need to go back and correct a little bit. Where's my little scissors? Right there. Okay. Okay, what I did was I wasn't watching where I was sewing, so I got it a little short there. And in order for your fold over to be even, you're going to want to make sure that seam is your 1/4 inch or whatever you're doing your seam at. I'm going to have to fill my bobbin pretty soon. Here. Go under. There we go. Okay, see, it got a little thin right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here where it was correct, put my needle down on my thread, and stitch again. You don't have to take the old stitch out. It just makes it a wider seam. Okay. Now what you might do is trim off these edges. Trash can. Trim off your threads, any excess threads. These guys where you started the first time and ended the second time, and just any extra threads that you have. Okay, now you've got what looks like this. Okay, and it looks like that on the other side. And see, I got a little bit of a pucker there, so there, pucker right there. Doesn't do any harm. Let's see. Okay, so now you're going to want to fold it over. Like, let's move the sewing machine out of the way. And you're going to want to fold it over. Fold it over, and you kind of want to force that all in and kind of pull on it and wrap it around that corner. Can you see what? Yeah. And keep pulling it over. Just keep tight, pull it tight. Now, see, this is that edge where I had to trim a little bit. Where that one is, brings it in underneath a little bit, and then that one goes over the top. Just keep working it, just keep working it. Pulling tight, pulling tight, pulling it. You're going to want to, and it'll fold over, see? And I'll show you what to do with the glue here in a minute. You want to really work those corners so that it'll lay flat when you get it over there. You're going to want this edge so that it covers that seam line where you just sewed it on from the other side. And then we're going to use one of these too. So one of the little strips that are in the separate baggie. Okay, I think we've about got that. About as good as it's going to be. Now, if you need to, you can take it over and iron it too, but don't necessarily need to. Now, you're going to want to fold that over, and you're going to want to make sure that this edge, the folded edge, covers the line where you sewed it from the other side. Okay? Okay, let's okay, the glue. Didn't know you could use Elmer's glue and handy dandy paper stuff for sewing, did you? You just smear it on that edge. And you may get a little sticky. But boy. There. Okay, I'm going to use some of these for that too. these corners. I don't know whether you can see what I'm doing. You're just wiping the glue on the edge of the fabric, because I use washable glue, so it'll all come out when you're washed. Fold it over, and it just helps hold it down. Like that. Just wipe it on the edge. I'm trying to get it so that I can get it on the camera really well, but not cooperating, so I'll show you this way. I'm just putting the glue right in here, right in there. Try to straighten everything flat. The corners don't like to lay flat, but just keep working it. And press, and press, and press. You could probably even, maybe that's what I did earlier, is I glued it all down and ironed it. I'll bet that's what I did. We'll try that just a minute. So you could probably glue the whole edge. It doesn't dry that quickly. I'll go press it here in a second. That way you can see what it's going to look like. The iron is your friend. Okay. Okay, this is what it looks like after it's ironed and glued down and ironed, and that way you don't have to hold it, pin it, clamp it, or anything like that. One thing you are going to want to do, these should be folded with the long sides to the center, and then fold it in half. That way you don't have any raw edges. Okay, you're going to want to stitch those down. So let's move the sewing machine back into the area. If I can do it without knocking the camera over. Pin my, maybe it'll bird nest on me if I do it right there. Okay, now what I want to do is those two edges right there, at a minimum, those need to be sewn down. And you want to do it just as close to the edge as you can. show it to you when I get through. And I like to sew it on the other side as well. Just it gives it a little bit of substance and it makes it look the same. If you want, you could do one seam right down the center. That would hold those two edges together. That's what your objective is. You don't have to do anything overly complicated. There's my bird's nest. Let's see. I don't know whether you can see it very well or not. Let's see if I can scooch it up there. Here, how about if I do it this way? It's not going to focus, is it? Yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like anyway. And that's why I pin the clip on the back of the threads to hold them in the back, because it keeps it from doing that. So if you get one of those, you just trim off the excess. It's just the top thread. See how short it is after I had all that extra thread? That's the top thread, and it's just pulled it back and forth in there. It's not part of the integrity of the stitching, it just looks ugly. Okay, so that's that, and that's going to be the loop. So what you want to do, I keep forgetting to be in the camera, it didn't help. You fold it in half, or you can fold it like that, or you can fold it like that. Any of those ways. I kind of like them with a little bit of loop on them, so I fold them like that. Okay, kind of like the pink cancer things. And put it in. I put mine in a corner. You slide it up in there, and then you're going to want to fold it. I want it the other way. You put it under that edge. Can you see what I'm doing? Yeah. So you put it under that edge. It doesn't have to go in a long ways, but as much as it needs to so you can catch it anyway. And then you're going to want to fold it back. I think the easiest way to hold that might be with a pin. Might take a couple of pins. Yeah. Fiddle. Problem is I don't want that to come out before I get it stitched. How about if we pull that out and stitch it to this? No, it's not going to work. You put it in underneath and then fold it back. And it might even be better if it goes separate like that. That's pretty good. Keeps it from being really thick, and if you can clip it far enough down so that it holds this under that edge, you're better off. If I move out of the camera, I'll show you what I've done. There's got to be a better way to do that. Haven't got that figured out yet, have I? Okay, let's glue that and iron it again. I'm gonna glue that end in there. And then this end right there. And then I'm going to take it over to my iron and iron it so that it kind of dries the glue a little bit. Okay, I've got that ironed down and glued. And then I want to fold it back up like that so that it sticks out off the top of the pot holder. And clip them. With that glue on the tips, I'm not as worried about that part coming out. Okay, so now we're ready to stitch this side. Now you're going to want to choose where you want to stitch and try to take, well, let me see something here. Okay, if I do that there, okay. What I would like to be able to do would be to stitch it from this side and not go out of this. Now, I never did it that way, so it's always a learning experience, but I'm going to try it like this. Okay, you need to go in here. There we go. And again, I started on the flat side. Don't start in a corner. Go really slow on these thick spots. Sometimes your machine has trouble going through thicker spots, and you could possibly break a needle if you go too fast. Okay, we're coming up to that loop, so we're going to have to be real careful with that. Make sure we get everything caught the way we want it. see, I've already got a problem. It came out. So, what I want to do is stick it under there. And I'm afraid I'm far enough off the edge that I'm not going to catch that. Okay, what I may have to do is this. This may be the best thing to do. That way I'm sure I get it caught. Yeah, see, I just pulled it back, and now I'm going to stitch across these to secure those ends underneath. My machine isn't sounding very happy. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this. Keep those threads out of my way. And if you sew right over here and go over the top of where you started and sew right in the same line, that'll secure those ends. And you don't have to worry about those coming unraveled. Okay. Okay, now what we're going to do with this is fold it up and then come back in and stitch again. That's just the best way to do that. That way everything is all secured. You might even, since that's going to be a stress point, put your needle down and turn your fabric all the way around and stitch in the same place again. And that'll hold it nice and secure in case you so that if that gets hung up and it's a stress point, it'll have lots of stitching on it to hold it secure. Okay, then you want to take all your, you get rid of all your extra threads. All your extra threads. And I'll show you something in just a second. Oh, see, oh man, no wonder it sounded unhappy. I got a bird's nest right in the middle. Okay. Now, see, this is what I was trying to avoid right here by trimming this shorter, but I didn't hold it tight enough. See, there's a little bit of excess right there, so I didn't hold it tight enough and cover that. So that's the finished potholder. Trying to figure out. There we go. Let's put a wide. Okay, so that's the finished potholder. Turn that off. Scooch it out of the way. I think you'll get a better picture. There. Finished. Oh, let's look at the back. Yeah, we still didn't get it in the edge, but it doesn't look too bad except for that thread right there. Okay. See. Yeah, that's a little bit of a mess right there, but hey, the potholder will work. We always work to try to make it better, but you have to let go of the bad parts and just work to fix that the next time. Okay, that is a potholder, and that might actually be better turned that way. I don't know which way that should go. There, kind of fold it. You can finger press it a little bit. Okay, potholders. When I go through this, I'll look and make sure that I've covered everything. You don't have to worry about, I sent thread. It's cotton thread. I thought, I'd heard that cotton thread would be better for potholders because the polyester thread might melt. I've been using polyester thread on these, and I've got 4 of them in the kitchen that I've been using a little bit, and I haven't had any problem with them. So if you want to use whatever thread is in your sewing machine, it's fine. You could even get different colors to match the fabrics that you've got. I use a lot of white. I'm gonna see if I can figure out. I got one to work really well as far as this edge and this edge, and I don't remember how I did it now. But you practice. If you have any questions, text, call, write an email, whatever you need to do. Maybe we can figure out a way of doing it over Skype or some sort of video type thing if you have a question that I can't figure out how to answer it or something. Have fun, above all. That's all this is. Knitting, sewing, crocheting, any of that is all for fun. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.